Hardin. Some know me as a detox expert. Some know me as like a woo-woo business coach. Some know me as a psychic medium. However you know me, you also know that I'm super passionate about just supporting you at the level of biology and the level of belief. And it is such a pleasure for me today to have this very special guest on, Brandon Amalani. He's the owner of BluShield in North America. And he also owns the founder and the owner of Shin Blossoms, which, so we have a lot of overlap here. And just because I'm super passionate about dirty pollution with educating people in EMF frequencies and the health impacts of that. And then obviously with my own detox company, I play with herbs and I distribute herbs, right? So I think that there's so much that we can do when we support the body at the level of the cell, and then we also implement lifestyle tools and things like BluShield technology, which I have personally. So I want everybody to know today that shows up that I brought Brandon on because if you've been following me, and I've been really educating a lot of people, or doing a lot of education around the health impacts of EMF frequency, how you're impacted by that literally every single moment of your life. And with 5G and the rollout of 5G and the acceleration of the biological impacts of what that can do, what that will do, I think more than ever, now is the time for us to be really wise in terms of what we can do to protect our bodies. And I just feel so strongly about, I believe so strongly in BluShield technology. I want everyone to know that I vetted you guys. So Brandon, and so this is Brandon. And Brandon, I literally vetted you guys for probably like 6 years or more, right? Because when I started researching, I'm very sensitive, and I started noticing probably about 10 years ago that if I had my cell phone up to my ear, like it felt like my brain was fried and I couldn't really concentrate after a period of time. And if I was on my computer, I just started noticing, and I just intuitively knew that it was a combination of two things. I believed that I just knew it was the EMF that was coming off of my devices, and that I was being bombarded with, being in the modern world through other people's wireless signals and then cell towers. And then I also knew it was coming from the blue light of all of these devices, right? So those were the two things that I felt I didn't really have control over. And so I started doing more and more research around this. And that's how I found you guys. And I vetted you for a really long time. And then I finally took the plunge and I bought the devices, and they've had an incredible impact in my life. And I'm going to share that. But first, I want to dive into, can you just tell me a little bit? I know that the audience that's coming here, some are very educated and some are not so educated in EMF and what it really is, and then how it's impacting and the sources of it, right? And then 5G. So I think it'd be really awesome if you could just start by just sharing a little, maybe how you got into this and what EMF is and how we're impacted. And so, yeah, I'll just pass it to that.
Sure, absolutely. I actually got into this because of my study in holistic health and Chinese medicine, herbalism, nutrition. You know, years ago, I started realizing that, you know, we are electromagnetic beings. And, you know, as we looked at physiology, as we looked at health years and years ago, we started adopting this kind of chemical model, right? Where all these chemicals are flooding the body and activating processes in the body. And all these physiochemical processes in our body are very mechanical, and they're very low density, meaning they're all these kind of physical components to our body. But we are also at the same time electromagnetic. You know, there's electricity, there's magnetism. If you look at the sun, the sun's a great source of plasma and electromagnetic waves for the planet. And so I knew that a lot of these artificial, what I like to call non-native EMF fields or electromagnetic fields, were repetitive and not moving in a natural way. So, you know, energy in nature moves in a particular way, and our biology has evolved to basically be resonant with that, and it helps us. It's beneficial. So there's beneficial electromagnetic fields that we experience in nature, and then there's these artificial, man-made, repetitive frequencies. A lot of them being, you know, what we're exposed to with cell phone radiation, what we're exposed to with our computers, and most modern electronics essentially will have this repetitive frequency that affects our biology, because our biology is always trying to attack or mount an immune response to these fields. So early on, I was looking for ways to mitigate that using natural methods, and now what we use with BluShield, which is actually a microprocessor-based technology, to remediate or, you know, help protect our body at the cellular level from electromagnetic radiation.
Yeah, awesome. So, and I think it's important for people to understand, like, they think, okay, cell phone, computer, but it's so much more than that, right? It's your devices in your home. It's also the waves that are running through that you plug all your devices into, right? So we're always it's almost like, sometimes I kind of think about it, and I don't live in fear, right? I don't have fear around this. I believe that we can really support our body biologically so that we can have a strong immune system, but you have to really be proactive about that. It's not easy, right?
Definitely.
It's almost like now with the way that our lives are set up, with the TVs, with the computers, with the Alexas, with the smart meters, with everything being smart and connected, and this and that and this, and then just the currents that are running through our walls so that we can plug all of these things in. It's almost like we're living in a microwave.
It's all around us. I mean, if you take away the walls and the plaster and the beams, I mean, what you see is an electromagnetic cage essentially. And not only that, you know, we have smart meters that are now wirelessly, you know, transmitting signals, so they can basically take your gas reading or your electrical reading off your house by just driving by. And then,
so scary.
Yeah, and then you think about all the cell towers. You have to have multiple cell towers because these transverse waves, that what you're speaking to in the microwave range, are literally being transmitted, and they're subject to the inverse square law, which basically means they lose power over distance. So as they are transmitted, they need to hit another repeater to be boosted and repeated, and that's why you see cell towers all over the place, so we can get a clear, coherent signal from one cell phone to another, and those are bouncing around the airwaves all the time. So you know, ever since AM radio, we've been bombarded with these, you know, different radio wave frequencies, microwave frequencies. And again, I like to be clear that there are healing light. There is healing light, like light waves in the far infrared spectrum. For example, you've seen saunas that have far infrared waves or mid or near infrared waves, and those have a biologically beneficial impact on our body. But what we're talking about primarily within the wireless bandwidth is these microwave frequencies, which when we're looking at the generations, not a lot of people understand how 3G evolved to 4G up to 5G, but it's all kind of stacked and layered in an interdependent system, kind of like the internet. It kind of builds on itself. So what we're starting to hit with the 5G range is 20 gigahertz up to 300 gigahertz, which is kind of freaking a lot of people out, just because of how high frequency that is and what that implies as far as how it affects our biology. It's kind of a big for communication.
It's absolutely insane. And I think that what's really important for a lot of people that they don't recognize or they don't understand, right? Because it's really a matter of understanding, because we've almost been conditioned to just believe, oh yeah, well, we just live wirelessly. That's how we live. And of course, if we have that, then it's safe, which, like, hello, anything our government allows, I don't really necessarily buy into so much anymore these days. But it's important, I think, for people to understand. I love that you pointed this out, that 3G did not replace 4G and is not replacing 5G. They're stacking on each other. So as these new generations roll out and we have faster technology and like faster download, which I don't buy into any of this 5G is a faster download thing. I have a whole other theory around the truth of that. And people can watch those videos if they want. I think it's more about surveillance and control, especially around brain function. But
if you think about that, that's part of why they need so much information on a higher frequency frequency. It can contain more information. It just doesn't travel as far of a distance.
Right.
Yeah, and it's the way that these towers signal on and off based on what's needed. So it's a more efficient in a lot of ways, but a lot of these technologies evolve from military technologies. Like the microwave originally was from people in the Navy on these ships would actually go near the sonar, and they figured out it would warm them up, and they didn't realize that at that time that was actually cooking them from the inside out. But that evolved into a technology microwave where we can actually cook our food. Likewise, the 5G can be used in military applications in that sense, and actually has patents on it. But if you have the amplitude dialed in right, it doesn't necessarily cause harm in the traditional sense. I'm not saying long term, I'm saying in the short term, acutely. But yeah, the 5G for surveillance and control, that's definitely an application for it. But what's really important to understand about it is how it affects our biology and cellular communication in the long term, because that's when we see the detrimental effects. And it's not even really hidden at this point. We've outlined some articles on our BluShield site, especially the FDA, that $30 million FDA study that was done, and basically says that it does eventually cause cancer because it breaks apart the DNA and creates micronuclei that don't die, but they eventually create their own cells, and that mutation gets passed on. So they've shown that in rats, and it's pretty self-evident if you just do a little bit of digging. So
wow,
yeah, pretty creepy.
And anyone that's watching or listening or whatever, however you're tuning into this and whenever, I really encourage you to go to the BluShield website. It's BluShield US, and there's no E in blue, so it's BluShield-US.com, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Because you guys have an amazing amount of material that's really educational, that's like non-biased around the state of what's happening in the studies and the biological impact. Can you speak just a little more so people can understand? Because I think that a lot of people don't understand the health impacts because you can't see EMF. You can't see these wireless frequencies. And I think that that's a really big disconnect for people in terms of connecting it to why they're so exhausted, why they have brain fog, why their hormones aren't working, why, all of these kind of consistent themes, they're not sleeping well. Mm-hmm. So can you speak just a little bit more to the impacts of the health impacts of these of EMF pollution, essentially?
Sure. And just to be fair on the topic, a lot of people are dehydrated, they're not eating well, they're not exercising. There's all these other factors that can contribute to some of the symptoms that are often associated with electromagnetic radiation exposure. So that's kind of number one. The things that we do know are Dr. Martin Pall. He's pretty much the most famous doctor that shed light on the voltage-gated calcium channel issue. So what happens when we're exposed to radio frequency is that our body floods these calcium channels with 100 times the normal level of calcium than we otherwise would excrete into the bloodstream. Nobody really knows why this happens. Our best hypothesis at this point is that the body is basically becoming acidic because it's trying to mount an immune response. It's being negatively impacted by the electromagnetic waves, and the body's flooding the body, or the cells are being flooded with calcium in order to maintain that proper alkalinity in the blood. But again, we don't really know why it's happening, but it's very clear that it is happening. That has a host of negative impacts in the body, largely like anxiety, depression, nervousness, all of these kind of things, because you're talking about neurotransmitters. You're talking about hormone function. So sleep patterns become more erratic. People can't really easily convert serotonin into melatonin as easy. And then it's also depleting your alkaline mineral reserves, which will eventually affect the bones, eventually affect vitamin D levels and vitamin D synthesis. So there's all these kind of like direct correlation, but also these secondary and tertiary side effects that come from being exposed to electromagnetic radiation on a chronic low level basis. Mood, anxiety, depression, but also cellular function, how the cells are communicating. The cells in the body will inhibit nutrient uptake, but also because they become paralyzed essentially with that calcium potassium pump, it's not allowing any toxins out of the cell. So that's affecting the mitochondria and your energy production. So you're talking about being lethargic or not feeling well rested. A lot of these are cellular metabolism components to being exposed to electromagnetic fields. The other big one is infertility. That's huge. And that's why I'm really passionate about getting this stuff out of schools. If nothing else, I'd really like to get a program together where we can either donate to schools or make some program happen with getting BluShield in schools, because we know the follicles on the egg are damaged in young girls. We know that with Wi-Fi radiation, it's pretty well established at this point. So this population agenda type thing that's going on, has a direct correlation with that. And women or females, they have all the eggs they're ever going to have when they're born. A man can recycle and regenerate, new sperm and reproductive value there, but it's really dangerous, especially to young girls that have Wi-Fi in school. So I'm adamantly against that and trying to spread awareness and what's going on with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I shared this a little bit, but what you guys are doing is like so incredible for the people of our planet, right? I mean, essentially it's like you're helping them with tools. Like, it's not even a lifestyle change. You don't even have to do anything. You just plug in a device or you just carry a device, right? And like, that's easy, right? Like getting people to change their nutrition, getting them to exercise, getting them to drink more water. They have to change something. Here, you just have to do something one time,
Yeah, and the people that are making the effort to do that, this is amplifying all those efforts because of how it structures the water in your body, how it's basically making your digestion more efficient, how you're getting better sleep. So all those things are really great. And we need to do that. And that naturally, if you're doing the Qigong exercise, minerals, nutrients, all this kind of stuff, and you have a balanced protocol for you as an individual, what's nice about that is that you put BluShield in the background and it's pulsing every half minute doing its thing, and you're sleeping better, you're getting more use out of all of that. And it's actually going to take you to the next level in a lot of regards, when otherwise, strengthening the biofield with nutrition, strengthening the biofield with exercise will have.
Just to share a little bit. Oh. Love technology. So just to share a little bit, when I got my devices, I noticed like the first kind of 10 days, I was like, I could feel I was a little more fatigued. Right. And I know because I've been, following you guys for so long, and I know that there's a whole detox, cycle going on as my body's now able to work in a more efficient way. So it's going into like recovery mode,
right,
to be able to boost me up to that next level is how I really understand it. Right. So, but what I experienced kind of once I got to the other side of that was my sleep. It's like sounder. I like sleep more soundly. I wake up, I would say, more refreshed. And like, if I'm feeling this, it's a pretty big deal because I already live in a very like heightened state of energy, sleep. My biology is pretty dialed. I feel like really lucky for that. I have energy. I have focus. I have good sleep, and I do my detox consistently. So my biological processes are very efficient. And this was like an upgrade. So what I noticed was my energy is stronger. my vitality, my ability to just keep going, and there was like no fatigue. There was kind of no even disconnect in the potential fatigue. My focus, it's easier to stay more focused. So those were like the big things for me, which sleep, energy, and focus, like that's like life, right? That's like everything in life. You know, you can't discount any of that. So I would love if you could speak to like, what is the technology of these things and how do they work?
That's a loaded question. So it's actually going back about 30 years. This product has been under development. The current generation that we have, minus the new Premium Ultra and Premium Cube, which have an additional or a modified waveform output, has been in existence since about 2009. So that's the latest rendition. And what's actually happening is that the device is sending signals every half minute. So it's pulsing multiple millions of frequencies within the human responsive range into the environment. And what's happening is that your body is tuning into those and then training with those frequencies. And over a 10 to 14 day acclimation period, your body starts to, for lack of a better term, seek out those signals in the environment, because our body, our cells have an innate intelligence. So if you were to take a petri dish, for example, and you put toxins on one end and nutrients on the other, in every single case, without human influence, the cells would move towards what's beneficial and away from what's toxic. So there's a natural inherent cellular intelligence there. So what happens is the body would always gravitate towards what's beneficial for it, like BluShield frequencies, like nature, which we've evolved to, where you have millions of frequencies within the human responsive range, but they're always changing and moving in different ways. Like for example, you'll see different light spectrum in the sky at different times of the day. You know, ocean waves are another good example of that, where it's, you know, the waves are rolling in and rolling out, but it's never exact same time, exact same cadence, exact same sound. But there's all those, you know, 92 minerals and all the animal life and everything else in the ocean that's having its own like frequency and influence on nature. So what we've done is we've created an algorithm that has, it's a very complex algorithm with multiple layers of code, and it's sending out these signals while never stimulating your body the same way twice. So you have this kind of randomization that keeps your body's, it bypasses the body's impedance in a lot of ways. And that's getting a little technical with the scalar side, but it's basically changing all the time, like energy in nature, but it also has coherence, like everything in nature. So there's these mathematics, the phi ratio, some of these, some of this code is programmed in a way to replicate these patterns that we see in nature, the geometry in nature. So it's this really complex signal that's pulsed out every half minute that your body entrains with. And my best analogy that I've come up with is it's kind of like if your cells in your body are a dial on a radio, and you're tuning that radio, trying to find the station that you want to listen to with the song you want to listen to. Once you dial that in, it's going to tune into the carrier signal, and that carrier signal has the information or code that has your song on it. So it doesn't mean all of the other, you know, radio stations aren't bouncing around the airwave. They certainly are. It's just your cells are tuned into a particular bandwidth. And what we found with the animal research and the human studies that were done is that the body will gravitate towards the BluShield signals, and it will stop attacking the EMF, which is interesting because the body perceives this unnatural repetitive frequency as like a foreign invader, something it has to mount an immune response against. So it's constantly trying to spin its wheels and attack, you know, the EMF, which you can obviously never win against in this day and age.
Right.
And that's why you see things like allergies and just feeling run down and all these kind of multitude of things that happen at the cellular level. But what happens when it's tuned into BluShield is that it stops attacking that, and it reallocates immune power back into the body so it can endogenously create homeostasis and balance. I mean, your code, your information, your DNA has everything it needs to self-heal. If you cut yourself, you don't have to think about it. You just apply pressure and the body heals it. It starts correcting everything. It's just all there. So if we kind of eliminate this stress, this environmental stress on the body, then the body knows how to go into healing mode. And that's where you were talking about, some people feel like a Herxheimer reaction, kind of an auto intoxication, because some people are really healthy and they don't notice anything, because like your efficiency, you might just feel a little tired. You might not get the headaches. You might not feel like you need to be in bed for an entire day. But some people that don't have a lot of strength in their organ systems and digestive processes, and most importantly, their elimination processes, they will feel kind of more lethargic and up and down in energy for 5-10 days, depending on the individual. But after they go through that process, after the body has utilized to its best ability that excess immune power to clean house, to do what it needs to do, then people just start feeling really great. And again, everything, you acclimate to everything in nature. It's like living in a city and breathing, car exhaust and, seeing trash everywhere and like being around tons of concrete. And then you move out into the backcountry and you have a nice little log cabin with a fresh stream and clean air. It might take a little acclimation, but that new level of acclimation that you hit is going to be far superior to when you were, living in that dirty, nasty city and being exposed to all those chemicals and everything. So BluShield just recalibrates your new level of normal by creating that what's known as sympathetic entrainment. So hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, totally. So let me just reflect that back to you in a way to make sure I understand, and maybe like, because I know it's a lot when you're first learning about this, it can be a lot, right? And it's funny, in just a minute, I'm going to go plug my BluShield back in because I feel like, I don't know if it's psychosomatic or if it's true, but like, I want this plugged in. Like, I feel like I noticed, and this is why I first got into this, is one of my impacts is it's labored breathing. I noticed that my breathing is more challenging, right? And so that's probably why the anxiety and the depression is impacted by EMFs, I would think, because as your breathing becomes more shallowed and more labored, like you're stimulating that response in the body, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why conscious breathing is probably one of the most important things you can do to saturate your body with oxygen, but also that diaphragmic movement. In Chinese medicine, the lungs kind of are the gatekeeper, the bodyguard to the other organs system. So it's a fundamental aspect of your immune system, and it's the most exposed externally to the environment organ that you have. So the lung function and the kidney function kind of work together and create a pump and generate movement, energy, and chi in the body. So.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk about the processes. This is how I understand it. So nature has these frequencies, and they're constantly changing, and we are nature, right? So like our body works well with these constantly changing frequencies that are at a healthy level. I guess I think is important to say, like what's a healthy level and what's a healthy frequency. I think that's a whole nother study, but essentially you guys are on board with what that kind of looks like. And so our body does really well, and it harmonizes with nature in these continually changing frequencies and resonances that really work well to stimulate our immune system and our natural biological processes.
Yep.
Enter EMF and 5G and these things. And now, rather than having these constantly changing frequencies that are natural and that are in a healthy sort of range, you have this bombardment, which is like the same signal all the time, like basically coming at you, and like almost like attacking you. Right. And they're actually at a rate beyond what's actually healthy. So the body goes to attacking itself or trying to recover from that. And so that's how all of your biological processes then start to go downhill. So BluShield, and I think that when we're out in nature, I would guess that EMF, it's almost like, is it formed like a blanket where we're not getting the natural frequencies, and so the EMF is so much stronger because of.
That's a good question, because there's debate about 5G satellites and being able to get global internet, the Schumann resonance being always changing and interfered with by satellites in the upper atmosphere or whatever. So yeah, that's a good question. Naturally, I think there's enough nature has a dampening effect on these electromagnetic fields that are unnatural. Like if you're in mountains and trees and all this stuff, you'll find much lower levels. But then you start getting into the concepts of everything having a transverse waveform and a scalar component to that, or an informational field. So the informational field is kind of what's doing a lot of the healing in nature, when you're talking about forest bathing and some of these therapies that you see in Japan and other places, that's basically that informational code influences the subtle energy systems of the body, because the body essentially is a scalar emitter and receiver. So these are the type of waveforms, these longitudinal waveforms versus transverse waveforms. This is what we're using as the carrier signal for BluShield to deliver effectively over distance the BluShield algorithm.
Okay. Yeah. So the BluShield emits frequencies that are more aligned with how nature works. And essentially, they mimic nature, these frequencies and the algorithm. And you have a microprocessor. So it's almost like a little computer in there that's constantly creating this algorithm, and then it sends out these signals. Mm-hmm. So BluShield doesn't do anything to the Wi-Fi or the EMF signals. It just sends out this harmonizing signal. And because your body naturally wants to go towards that, that's kind of what it connects to. So then it's able to almost like plug into the BluShield frequencies rather than being impacted and bombarded by the other ones. Is that correct?
More or less. I mean, it's not really a plugging into, it's more of a relationship. It's kind of a back and forth that happens between the signals coming off BluShield. It's replicating how our relationship should be with nature. We should be getting outside more. We should be getting more sun, getting more fresh oxygen, touching the earth, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
These are all the processes. So we're basically doing as close as we can to how do we take nature, amplify it in a house so it competes and becomes the dominant signal in the environment that your cells pay attention to, versus trying to fight all this kind of stuff. So it's harmonizing you with the environment. Yes, it's not affecting your Wi-Fi. It's not affecting your cell phones will still work. You're still going to get signals and everything, but your body, your cells are paying attention to the BluShield.
Oh my God, I love that. I love the idea that basically while I'm sleeping or while I'm working, instead of like being bombarded, my body's like playing with nature.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's like the coolest thing ever. So, okay, what I would love then is just if you could speak a little bit to helping people understand, I know, so as I've talked and already talked about your products and whatnot, and they've generously, for anyone that's watching, Brandon and his team, they generously have offered everybody a discount code with my name. It's NYKKI10. So if you go and check out their products or to their website, you can use that code to get your devices. And I really want to encourage everyone to get these devices, because they're just, it's to me, it's a no-brainer. It's an investment on the front end for like a huge payoff on the back end. So as a lot of people have said, what do you recommend? And how do I know what to choose and things like that? So I think it'd be amazing if you could just kind of speak to helping how people can decide which products to use for themselves and what they should get.
Absolutely. And we have a great blog post that says which BluShield is best for me. If you read that, that's going to give you some really good links to places where you can literally punch in your address and see where all the cell phone towers, where all the radio towers are in your area that are listed. So what we like to do is, because most of these devices, so let's start with the home unit. So we have plugins, cubes, and ultras. We have a premium series and a regular series. And those are ones that you plug into your wall. They're at your house all the time. That's where you want to sleep. Those are the strongest systems. And most of them will cover most houses that people live in. Unless you have a huge mansion, you need more of like an ultra series. But we like to think more in signal strength. So if you go to the website, I believe it's called antennasearch.com, this will give you the idea of like how much saturation of EMF there is in your environment and which strength that you might need. In this day and age, when we're moving to 5G, and I realize everybody's budget conscious right now, and the strongest one that you can get will future-proof you more so, for sure. Because again, it's how strong the signal is compared to all the ambient EMF that you're exposed to. You want your cells to pay attention to the BluShield and not the EMF and try and attack the EMF like we've outlined. So the premium series, Cube, and Ultra are our newest waveform outputs. So there's a different wave configuration where it's pulsing every half minute, like I mentioned that before, which all the BluShield does. But this particular one has a constant signal. So that one pulses every half minute. You'll see the flashing lights for about 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's cool.
The new ones have that, but they have an additional series of constant signals that are always on. These phi ratio signals and some of these codes that are going out into being exposed to your body are allowing your body for higher levels of regeneration. So they're designed for people in line of sight of cell repeaters. So if you have a 5G repeater outside your house, you definitely want to lean towards like the premium series, Cube or Ultra. The regular series are just great for anybody living in a city, suburbs. Really, if you're in a rural area and you're kind of living in the country and you might have one cell phone tower in your area and not a lot of neighbors, that's where you would see that you'd want what you have as a plug-in. And if you're in a more urban area, I would definitely recommend a Cube or better in most situations. Now we have the portable units, which are supposed to be accompanied with those. So anytime you're outside of your protected zone, you're going out of your house, you're going out of your office, you want to have the portable on you, and that maintains the entrainment until you get back to your house where you have your Cube or your Ultra or your plug-in, going all the time. So it's designed to be
it's so easy and convenient. Like sometimes I'll just throw it in my back pocket or I just put it in my purse. And it's funny because I notice, like, I don't even care if it's if it's like a subconscious thing or whatever, but I feel better when I have this. I notice, like, I just feel like something about it makes me feel like I've made a really wise decision for myself. And I like that. So whatever it is, I'm so grateful that I got this, because I was like, well, why would I just get that and then not protect myself? I'm not only in my house, right?
Right.
And like then you're driving in a car, and then you're.
Well, some people think that they can get a portable and that'll give them full protection, which it's not nearly strong enough. But once you're entrained and you create that entrainment through the home unit, then that's definitely powered enough with that lithium-ion battery to where you have protection when you're, in your car running errands or you're catching a flight. That'll keep your cells entrained and keep sweeping over the cells every half minute.
Got it. So it's almost like a way of keeping you on the treadmill when you're not at the gym.
Yeah, keeps the cells happy and healthy and coherent and exchanging information with other cells appropriately versus always being in attack mode and trying to defend against all the ambient radiation in the environment.
Got it. Okay. So then talk about I don't have a car unit yet, right? But I'm very intrigued about the car unit. And so can you just talk about the car unit and why the car unit is important?
Yeah, and I wish we had the car unit. We've been waiting for months for the supply chain because we've had, like, literally, if you look at the website, we have hundreds of signups at this point. But the car unit is originally I was thinking, I love the portable, but it'd be cool to have the strength of a plug-in in my car because, if I'm going on business, I'm taking more road trips than I am flying usually, or at least I try to. And I was thinking, people that are in their car all the time, police officers, truck drivers, anybody who's kind of always in their vehicle might want something stronger. So we came up with a type that you plug into your cigarette lighter, and it's basically just like having a plug-in in your car. And then it's also kind of convenient in the sense that you don't have to worry about remembering or forgetting your BluShield. Obviously, you want to take it into stores, you want to take your portable with you, but if you're just jumping in the car, you know that you have protection on the road. So that one's really awesome. I don't have an ETA when we'll have that back. I'm hoping that we'll have that back by fourth quarter, but it's been being redesigned because originally, like I said, that was the prototype. I was just interested in, I talked to Mark, who's the co-inventor and the founder of BluShield, and I was just like, can we make something stronger that we can put in the car? And that was what you see on the website right now is just kind of a prototype, and we're sprucing it up and making it so it can match the rest of the line and look really cool. So hopefully coming soon in the next few months.
Now, I also heard, and this gets me kind of excited, that you guys might be coming out with a phone.
Where'd you hear that?
Well, I do a lot of research.
Yeah, I mean, what's cool about our proprietary algorithm is that it doesn't need to ride on a scalar wave to affect the biology. You can put it in routers, you can put it in phones, so put it in watches. So yeah, we're definitely looking at this stuff. We're just really trying to keep up with demand right now in the EMF market and trying to refine our current line. But yeah, that's definitely something we've talked about, having a phone with, the BluShield microprocessor in it, that could basically just ride on the Wi-Fi signal or the Bluetooth and give you positive energy while you're holding the device. Of course, we don't recommend putting your phone up to your body, because the most dangerous part of a phone is what's known as the near field plume, and it radiates about 4 to 6 inches away from the phone, depending on the manufacturer. And you don't want to keep that in your pocket. You don't want to keep that on your body. If you do have it on your body, just click it in airplane mode or switch it to airplane mode, and that'll help a lot to keep it in your pocket safely. So yeah, don't keep things directly on the body, because the one thing, BluShield, and just to be transparent, BluShield, what we've seen in animal research and human research, it's 93% effective at protecting you at the cell level from EMF. So nothing can possibly be 100% efficient. Nothing's efficient in nature. Your digestion, you're eating a lot of food, but how much of it are you actually absorbing? There's always kind of an entropy or energy loss when you're exposed to this much EMF. But if you can mitigate that 93%, that gives your body 93% more immune power and energy to adapt and change and detoxify and become stronger. So that's a huge leverage. And that's why, everybody sees the benefits with sleep and all of these other things. It's truly profound. I mean, we can't really get away from it. You can't sleep in a Faraday cage. You can't live in a Faraday cage without detrimental effects, because there's natural beneficial electromagnetic fields in nature, or informational fields that that affect the biology positively that you're blocking. And then the other thing, and we wrote a really cool article on this called "Can You Even Block EMF?" There's the scalar component that's not addressed, that moves right through physical matter because it's superluminal. The informational field is on a different octave, a different plane essentially than the what we see as physical matter, on the electromagnetic spectrum. Right. It's connected with it, but it exists in a different superluminal state, which is why most advanced physicists talk about how all points in time space are connected. That's how non-locality works. That's how you can connect with somebody or pray over somebody at long distances and have a physical reaction, a physical response, even though the people that are thinking about that entity or that water or what have you are miles and miles away. So that gets into some deep woo-woo stuff. But I think it's fascinating, and I think
next one.
I think it's good to be humble and realize that how much we still don't know about reality and quantum mechanics. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I love that you just said that. I think you and I could talk for hours on those topics. So that's not why we're here today.
yeah, and we're just grounding it, and that's why originally when you're talking about psychosomatic effects, that happens with everything you do. There's a mental association and a way we interpret reality. Most people have no understanding of what reality actually is and who they actually are behind the mask and the suit and the electrical synapses and stuff. So the interesting aspect to what we're doing is grounding in science and being like, hey, let's test this on animals. We think it's all cool, and we're getting all these awesome results with people. And that's what I really think is cool about what Mark did back in the day, is like doing the 1-year poultry study and the cow study before really getting deep into the blood work. And now we have a study. I'm not really supposed to talk about this. We got a new study coming up, and it's exciting because we have a lot of pre-data on a lot of people. And we're starting with 100 people this time, and it's not going to be grassroots like the old research that we did. Right. The old research was like, we were just observing what was happening, wrote it down, and published it. We didn't have anybody. We didn't pay thousands of dollars to have a technical paper written or any of this kind of stuff. But this time we're going technical, and I'm just really stoked about it. So that's all I can say at this point, because we have a few things in the works. So
amazing. And I totally understand being, someone. I mean, if I'm correct, it's like people have said, well, have you done any clinical studies and this, that, like for me in my detox company, right? And it's really fascinating because I've actually had doctors like say, oh, we should do a study. And I'm like, well, awesome. Okay, let's do it. And then when we've walked the path, when they investigated a little bit more and they realized that herbs aren't really aligned with the allopathic medicine system and symptomatic treatments, and that if they start producing, you know, clinical results that go against that with things that are non-pharmaceutical and, you know, symptomatic treatment processes, like what will that do to them and their license, right? So I've literally had practitioners come to me and say they want to do a study and then back out because of these woo-woo things, you know? So I think you guys, I'm sure you guys have had similar things, which it sounds like when you were first doing your tests and you're making these kind of things, you know, you build it up to the point where you're like, well, you know what? We got the funds. We're doing it on our own. We're hiring this out, you know?
Yeah. And we actually, we've had some kind of fans of ours come to the forefront. And what's nice about, because we've had people flake out too, for sure. I mean, it's considered kind of fringe. People don't understand scalar physics. You know, it's not, a lot of the understanding is repressed largely due to the fact with its direct connection with consciousness and how it actually works. But now we have people that have really, I guess, let's just say popular biofeedback stuff, technology. And we're working together to do it in a way that's cost effective. But we got a quote for literally $100 million to build these huge, literally build buildings, and these basically to trap and isolate microwave frequencies. So you can measure exactly milliwatts per centimeter squared on rodents. And it was literally a quote of $100 million. And we're just like, okay, can't do that. So we're basically networking with like-minded people who are objective. They're not in the scientism cult. They're actually into real science, where they're actually, you know, open to new ideas. They're open to the fact that maybe we don't know everything. Because the thing is, we have so much anecdotal stuff. It's insane. We get calls all the time. We have video testimonials. We have all this stuff on top of what, you know, Mark researched back in, you know, 10, 15 years ago. And so we know this stuff works, and we have less than a 1% return rate, which is shocking for any business, really, if you look at it just from a pure numbers perspective. So now we've attracted the right people, we think, hopefully, I'm not jinxing it, to where we can actually do a full-on study and get a technical paper written on it that can be reviewed by anybody. It's just open source. And we're really going to show exactly how it works on different levels, you know, sleep rhythms, heart rate variability, all these kind of like factors, all these kind of like trendy metrics. Of course, it's doing a lot more than that in the body, because it's affecting your body as a whole, not just these individual pieces and parts. So we're really excited about that. I'm guessing, just realistically, we're probably a year and a half out. Hopefully we can have some kind of preliminary data in, you know, six to 8 months. Hopefully. So.
Cool. Congratulations. That's really exciting.
Thank
Well,
you.
I want to be sensitive of your time, and you've been so generous. One thing though, first, I really would love to ask as kind of like a closing question is, you know, I know that when people, because I used to do the same thing, right? I understand this whole process. Like, well, I don't really want to spend that kind of money. I'm just going to get one of those pendants and wear the pendant, or I'll just put the sticker on my phone, right?
Yeah.
I used to try to do that because I just didn't want to spend the money in that way, right? Yeah. And I can speak to the fact that, like, I will invest again. Like, I will upgrade these products, and I paid full price. So everybody that's on this, you should know, like, I paid full price for these things. So I didn't get like freebies, try this, like, I bought it. And then I said, oh my God, I love this. I want to get my people on this. Can I get them a discount? And then I asked Brandon to come on. So that's how the relationship formed here.
Yep.
So if you could just talk a little bit. Now I look at like these pendants, and people are trying to get me to buy the pendants, and I'm thinking, I don't want to wear something on my heart that's like playing with these frequencies. Like, that's a little, I would rather just through universal mind and consciousness create my own frequencies from my heart, right? And protect myself that way, and then use the BluShield rather than literally having something on, I don't know. So I would just like for you to speak to the difference, or maybe like, is there even protection, or could they actually be harmful, like having this pendant on your body? Or what kind of protection are you really getting if you only put a little thing on your cell phone? So you can just help people understand like maybe the lack of education we really have around what those are doing and not doing. Yeah. And then so that they can understand what's possible when you just spend the money one time and you protect yourself.
Yeah. You know? The real distinction is that this is active EMF protection. The passive stuff is not strong enough, and in a lot of cases, it's more harmful. For example, some of the more popular pendants, for example, have really tight woven coil, and what they're doing is they're using some kind of chip, which acts kind of like a tuning fork, and it amplifies against your body, so it amplifies your biofield and whatever frequencies are programmed into the silicone chip or whatever they're using. And a lot of times what people don't understand is that they'll get like the warm and fuzzy, because any new stimulus into the environment that you're exposed to is going to have like an uplifting beneficial effect. When it starts becoming repetitive is where we start to have real issues when it comes to frequency. Now, what people don't understand about coils is that it will amplify ambient frequency as well as your own biofield. So coils are something you definitely want to be aware of and kind of steer clear of in a lot of respects, especially if they're powered. If they're powered and trying to create phase conjugation or like collapsed longitudinal waves, you're imprinting the energy of copper into that informational field. So your body's going to think it's like hyperstimulated with copper, which imbalances zinc ratios, and that whole mineral cascade kind of devolves from there. So the other thing with the stickers, yeah, most of them, sacred geometry is not going to protect you. You can't just like wave it. Microwave is still a microwave, cut and dry. You're not, if you were to put a sticker on this and it literally blocks the microwave, your phone wouldn't work. You wouldn't get a signal. Right. You'd be able to call out on it. So it's not going to harmonize in the way that people are kind of sold on. It needs to be active. It needs to be powered. And again, you're not going to really block anything, even if you're, doing the Faraday cage. You trap your phone and you can't make calls in or out to it. It blocks the, Hertzian signal, but the scalar component is still there, and that still affects our biology. And that's what people really don't understand, that again, all points in time space are connected. It's a quantum principle that seems to be more and more debated and more widely accepted as we kind of explore how all things are connected. So you can't live in a bubble from reality, really. I mean, you are reality. You're made up of the particles of reality. Most of you is empty space, but that empty space still has energy and a resonant field. So I'm digressing a little bit, but the stickers, the pendants, any of the passive devices like the orgone, pyramids and stuff, pyramids, a great geometry, it's a great frequency, energy, all of this kind of stuff. It's not powerful enough and dynamic enough to change with you and your body, because your body's always changing. A great thing I like to tell people is try and write your signature, a couple thousand times. Try and get one of those to match up under a microscope. You can't, because you're a different person. You're literally doing it a different way. The tilt and wobble of the Earth's happening in a different position. We're in a different point in time space as our galaxy is hurtling through the void, the void of the space. So we're always different. We're always changing, and nothing in nature is really repetitive like that. So to have a passive device maybe would have worked, like you build a big enough one, like in Egypt, at a different time when there wasn't microwave frequencies everywhere, that could have a substantial impact on the planet, which has an impact on you. And that's another thing that's being kind of debated right now. It's like, well, yeah, 5G, okay, yeah, it's bad for people, but what is it actually doing to the planet as a living organism? You're going up into the atmosphere, and you're basically shooting signals at the cell, which is the planet, and that's what we're all dependent on for life and sustenance. So we got to think about the implications of how these signals affect the planet, which could affect weather patterns, which could affect a lot of different aspects of the flora, the bacteria, the nature, everything.
Just nature. Like, what is going to happen to the water? What's going to happen to the trees? What's going to happen? We're already seeing the bees are, dying off. And I see them flopping around on the sand on Maui all the time. And I'm like, oh, it's lost. It can't find its electromagnetic field, to go home. Yeah. So sad. So, well, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing this. And thank you for everything that you're doing for the children. I mean, not for people, and then for the children. And I put the your URL on the lower thing. It's BluShield-US.com. And again, there's no E. It's so funny. I always laugh, like, because when I'll like type you guys in, I always get Blue Cross Blue Shield. It'll try to come up. And I laugh because it's like, talk about duality, you know, or polarity, right?
Yeah.
So
and then when we say Tesla Gold Series, Tesla is like an homage to, you know, the great Nikola Tesla. And people think, are you, you know, is this Elon Musk's company? Or we're confused with Blue Cross Blue Shield, because the company was actually founded in New Zealand. So I don't think they took
and I love that too. So, and again, anyone that's tuning in, you get 10% off with Nykki 10. So it's NYKKI 10. And I just cannot encourage everyone that watches this, if you even feel called to like, that this might like follow your intuition. And this is an investment that you'll wonder why you even second guessed. And I say that from my point of truth and from my point of experience. Like, as someone who pushed it off for 5-6 years, I'm like, why didn't I just do it? Like, so silly, right? Like, so anyways, thank you again so much for coming on. And anyone that's tuning in as well, you know how to find me. Like, if you have questions about this, you can email me, Nykki@NykkiHardin.com, or drop a comment here in the YouTube show. And we're so grateful, and have a great day.